All right. Well, hello. Welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. Martin Griffiths is an English singer who was a founding member of Scottish progressive rock band Beggars Opera. The original members were Martin, lead vocals, Ricky Gardiner, guitar, Marshall Erskine, bass and flute, Alan Park keyboards, and Raymond Wilson on drums. Formed in 1969, the band, through various lineup changes, would survive until 1976. Beggars Opera would release 3 albums in the early 1970s. Martin left the band after the 3rd album in 1972. Post Beggars Opera, he would sing in Europe with Scorpions, Golden Earring, Argent, and Nazareth, just to name a few. In the late 70s, my guest would release 3 singles. One, Israelites, reached number 3 on the German disco charts in 1977. Today, Martin Griffith is a castle guide in Germany, semi-retired, and is currently working on a new album release. Well, welcome, Martin.
Thank you, Greg. It's lovely to see you. All over long way away.
yes, we are. We're bridging that gap today. That's what we're doing.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. Well, take us
it's
back.
It's great to be and welcome to everybody. You know.
Okay, well, great. Yes. Hello, everyone. We'll take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
Yes, I was born in 1949. Gosh, one of the last of the 49ers, in Newcastle upon Tyne, which is northeast England, at the coast there, on the way up to Edinburgh and Scotland. And yeah, that's right.
You have fond childhood memories there. Is it related to hearing music in the household?
Yes, my mum always was singing, and my grands were always singing. Of course, the hits of the day. Well, I don't know, just all the main songs of that day. She was going around with a Hoover. She would be singing away, and I'd be listening to her and things. But my dad was tone deaf, he said. He didn't, he really didn't appreciate or get into music anyway, Yeah. But music was always there for me and with me.
Okay. Well, what about, what was the first musical instrument that you learned to play?
Well, always been this one here, the first one. I'm a singer. I do play guitar and I do play piano now, but back then I only sang. So it was a bit restrictive in a way because I didn't have anything to accompany myself with, or so I was always on the lookout for someone who could play an instrument and that I could sing along with.
Did you have any voice lessons?
No, I didn't. No, nothing like that at all. I was in a choir, I remember. I got 6pence for every performance in the church, which was rather nice. I was only about 11 or 12 at the time, but still 6pence was a lot of money in those days for me. So I was in a choir, school choir as well.
Okay. But then, sorry. No, I was going to say in some ways that can be a little restricting. Like you said, if you want to get into pop or branch out into other types of music, but it's good training ground. Yeah,
it is. Definitely. Yeah, and I mean the Beatles were always prevalent in those days, and radio they played all the time, and I just grew to just love this wonderful harmonies and melodies and things, and I wanted to sing them myself as well. So that was a great start, and that was a build up to when we moved to Glasgow in Scotland to take it a little bit further.
Yes. Were you a fan of the Everly Brothers?
Oh, yes, of course. The harmonies they had were they're great.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah. Well, can you remember one of the first singles or albums that you bought yourself?
Yes, I do, and it was with the Beatles, which is the second album of the Beatles, where they've got the faces, with a bit sort of a darker silhouette there, I think it is. And I was in Glasgow at that time. I think I got it for Christmas, and I was just amazed at the songs. I just loved it. Yeah, and of course I loved it because the girls loved it as well, and so if I was saying, well, I wouldn't need to praise them because I'd praise them anyway, but then you were in with the girls, that was great.
Right, right. And that was the big draw of the bands
Well,
that,
yes, of course it
yeah,
was, you
yeah.
know, yeah, to sing. But it wasn't easy for me in Glasgow to start off and try and get singing publicly, really.
Right. Did you, we talked a little bit or referenced a little bit before we started about being teased. Were you teased when you first went over there to Glasgow?
I was, as I said, Sassenach is the friendly name of a of a Scotsman to an Englishman. Yeah, but I mean, I always had the excuse. I lived or was born in Newcastle upon Tyne, which is near the Scottish border anyway, and so. But it wasn't easy, you know. And but the Beatles, as I said, were coming on in Glasgow at that time. So anyone with a bit of an English accent. In fact, in the school, I remember there was a guy. He was actually from Liverpool, and he was
Yeah.
the most popular guy in the whole school. You know, everybody wanted to hear this accent. You know that the Liverpool accent. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, that would be true. And I interviewed Alan Whitehead a while back. You know, he was in Marmalade, so he
Yeah.
has a similar story. He was the only Englishman,
Yeah.
surrounded by Scots, and of
Of
course they
course.
gave him a hard. He said they did give
Give him a
him a
hard
hard
time.
time.
Well, the Marmalade, before that, they were called Dean Ford and the Gaylords, and
Right.
they were a huge band in Glasgow. We went to see them a lot, you know, and they influenced us a lot in the way they played and the vocal harmonies. And Dean Ford, who was the singer, sadly no longer with us, he had a wonderful voice and great stage presence as well, you know.
Oh yes, he
So
did. Yes, he
Glasgow
did.
was buzzing at that time, really was.
Well, can you remember one of the first concerts that you attended?
Well, it would be, and these weren't concerts. You know, concerts were quite rare. It was basically dances. You
Okay.
know, these even the big bands in Glasgow, they made their money playing at dances, and you went out to listen to a band and dance and get off with a lady, and that was it. Concerts, I don't know. I think when I really think back on it, it was probably Deep Purple, going to
Oh,
see them in Glasgow at a huge theatre called Green's Playhouse. All the
yes.
major bands came there, you know, and I think when we were just getting together and starting and rehearsing, we made a point of going to see Deep Purple, you know, because
Yeah.
they were the, yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you. How influential was Deep Purple?
Well, I would say very, really, because they had the same lineup as we did, you know, organ and the guitar and everything, you know, and they were really pioneers in rock. You know, we were just called a rock band. We were, I mean, this progressive rock business comes a bit later, you know. We were all just rock bands, getting on with it. And then, of course, people, you know, like to put you in bags, you know, or in a sort of niche, whatever. And then
Right.
we became a progressive rock band. But Deep Purple were a rock band like us, or what we became, and we wanted to see what was happening, you know, up there. And we went
Well,
to see Family, and we went to see,
oh yes, Hannah.
yeah, anyone, you know, that I remember our organist Alan went to see Jimi Hendrix, you know,
Ah, yes, yes.
astounded, you know,
What
it's
about what
amazing.
about the what about the band Man?
Man from
Yeah,
Wales.
yeah,
Yes, I heard of them, of course. Yes, these were all man. I would put at the same sort of time as we were, you know,
yeah.
on the road and doing things, you know, and probably released their own first LP when I don't know, it was 1969, beginning of 1970 when we released our first album.
Yeah.
But yes, man, yeah.
Well, going back just a little bit, was your first band The System?
That's right. This was a school band. And this is how I sort of got into singing because I plucked up enough courage to go and ask the drummer of a band if, yeah, well, what happened was it was a history lesson, I remember. And he came in, I remember his name, Colin. He was the drummer of this band. And he asked all the lads in the school class if they could sing because he was desperate to get a singer for a party at the weekend, you know. And I could see him coming through the classroom, and I'm thinking, "Oh God, please ask me, would you?" You know. And I sort of hung around at the end, and nobody wanted to do it, you know. And eventually, he came up to me and said, "Okay, Griffiths, would you sing, you know? I said, oh, well, I'd love to. And so that was it was a group called the Weirdies, which wasn't the best of names, I don't think, for anyone trying to get gigs, but I did it, and that was the first gig. And you know, I just played rugby in those days at school, and I just a couple of weeks beforehand broken my collarbone playing rugby, and I was all strapped up, and I had a jacket on me. I remember, you know, singing, and I had my voice was totally different from what it later went on. I didn't know I'd had no style, so I liked Howlin' Wolf. So I was, I love the way you walk. That was the sort of thing, you know, as a 15-year-old. But anyway, I got a lot of sympathy because maybe they thought I only had one arm because they couldn't see, you know, it was all strapped up and everything.
It was strapped up, yeah.
And this singing Howlin' Wolf stock songs, but and that then developed into a group called the System, as you mentioned, and these were lads from the school. We were a school group, and we had a school fan club, and we played all the school dances. And we, at that time, of course, you in Glasgow, you could only get on if you were playing Tamla Motown or that kind of, you know, stuff. And we loved that, and we had a, you know, great guy on organ.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this
so
about
that, sorry?
Let me ask you about the broken collarbone at first. Did that work with the girls? Did you
Oh,
get
well,
some
as I said, it got me some sympathy.
sympathy?
Oh, Martin, you poor thing. You know? But,
Oh, that's
yeah.
good. Well, go on.
And of course, then I opened up, you know, because I'd been given the chance. I knew that I could sing, sing in the bath. There were no showers in those days, but and I was so pleased to be asked, and that I came out of my shell then a lot, you know, because then I felt I was doing something constructive, and it was great. You know, we just practiced all the time. We got together and practiced and get new songs. I was in charge of getting the words, and you could only get the words from getting the single, you know, and trying to stop it on the turntable to get all the words down. And some of the words I misunderstood, and
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So I've got a
funny. Yeah.
stack of all the old singles. You know, I used to was given a budget, and I used to go down the record store and buy the latest, you know, single that hit at that time, and then get the words off it. I don't know if that was allowed, but of course, if you bought the sheet music, I mean, they're so expensive, even in those days. You know, you couldn't afford it.
Let me ask you this about, I may have asked another interviewee about this, but why were the singles in UK, England, and over here, we had the bigger hole in the middle. You guys just had the little small one, you know.
Yeah.
Why was that? The different record players?
Right. I've got, this is my single.
Yeah, ours were like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, for this one, of course, the ones in Europe and the ones that you mentioned, you need an adapter, don't you, for the turntable?
Okay.
You know, because you can't play it, because on the turntable it's just one sort of pointy thing sticking up. But I don't know why. Maybe they wanted to put them on the turntable quicker or whatever. But and the adapter may have got lost or whatever. So maybe that's why we did that in the UK.
Okay. Well, they're easily recognizable. You know the difference when you see the single.
Right? Yeah, and also, Greg, the singles in Europe. I don't know what about the singles in the States. Always had a photograph of the artist on it. You know, but not in the UK.
Yeah.
No, you just had you know, the record company. You know, like Parlophone for the Beatles. You know.
Right. And then with the advent, when the EPs came out, they could have
that's when they had
almost
a photograph.
like the little album, a mini kind of album, four tracks in there. Yeah, so that was a good invention. Well, talk about a story behind how Beggars Opera came together.
Okay, I was in Glasgow, so I was saying, and my dad got promoted to go down to London, so we had to move from Glasgow down to London, which was a real, you know, the band and the group, it was not an easy move, but I had to move down with the family. I did my O levels and my hires in Glasgow. Stayed with Marshall, our bass guitarist. His parents put me up, and that was great. And so I moved down to London and needed a job. So I worked in a pub pulling pints. And then I thought I need to do a real job. and my grandma used to be in a department store. She worked in a department store called Phoenix. And she said, Martin, why don't you go and try and be in a department store? Which I applied for Harrods. I don't know if you've heard of Harrods. It's a very
Yes.
sort
Yes, I have.
upper class,
Yeah.
it was then anyway, department store in Knightsbridge in London. And I got accepted as a trainee buyer, where you worked in lots and lots of different departments. And I ended up, well, not ended up, but I started off in the radio and television department, which also had records there, which was great. Next door was the piano salon, which is the huge piano salon with full of grand pianos, and it was wonderful. I remember a guy called Reg Dwight used to come in and practice
Yeah.
on the pianos.
Uh-huh.
His great friend was also a friend of mine, and listened to this guy, of course, Elton John, playing on the pianos. He wasn't Elton John at that time, of course, but he used to come in and just practice on these wonderful grand pianos.
Yeah.
And then I was there for a year, and then I wanted to change, and so I applied for another job in supermarkets, and it was called Tesco. It was a real, sort of budget, so totally different to Harrods and the sort of bit of a snooty way. They closed Harrods down for the Beatles to come and buy their bits and pieces for their houses. They spent so much money that it was just right for them Harrods to close down. They came in the evening anyway, and I was behind Elizabeth Taylor as she went down the escalators. Oh yes, you used to meet them, by golly, down there. I tell you,
Is that right?
she was just a small lady, But
I guess I think that's what's where Trump got his idea, the escalator. You guys
really.
come. Yeah.
Okay. Oh well. Right. Yeah.
He remembers Martin and Elizabeth. He said, "I'm going to do that."
That's the way, of course.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
moved and I got this job as a shell filler, and then I went up into the supermarket, and then eventually I became manager of my own supermarket. And then I got a call from Marshall, Marshall Erskine, and he's the bass guitarist in the system, and he said he'd got a friend who I knew also was in the system called Ricky Gardiner, a wonderful guitarist, and he said, "Look, Martin, what do you think? Would you like to be part of what we're trying to do? We want to get it together again. Try it again. We were very popular as a school band, but what about doing it profi? And it was the right time for me, and so I got him down, and he became the warehouse manager in the supermarket. That's Marshall, and Ricky came down to London. Excuse me, worked in insurance. And then we decided, right, we're going to need some money for gear, for the gear. So we all gave our jobs up and then worked on a building site, building the motorway, the M20, which is near, Abingdon. I think it's near Oxford anyway. But and we lived on a caravan on site, and all the money we used to save.
What kind of work? What kind of? It was actually physical labor. You guys
Digging,
Oh, okay.
digging, digging.
Okay.
Ricky had a heavy goods license. He was on the big Caterpillar earth moving equipment. He got well paid as well for that. And Marshall and myself, well, we didn't. We just got sent down the trenches to do the pipes, and we got sacked. We got sacked. I remember, because we laid a pipe the wrong way around. It was supposed to go that way, and we laid it that way, but it wasn't our fault. That was the engineer. Anyway, we got sacked, and we went back to our caravan, and we found that all the money that we had saved, and we put it in a Watkins echo chamber. I don't know if we used to have that as part of the gear, and we used to put it behind. And unfortunately, our roadie, who was going to be our roadie, he stole it all and disappeared off. Yeah, at that time, the war in Israel. It was what, 1969.
Yes, I was going to say about 69.
Yeah. And we tried to we raced after him, but he'd gone, and he became our road manager in Beggars Opera later on. He was stopped at the border and paid everything back, you know, and he just said, well, you know, I just had to do it. I had to go. I had to
You
go,
guys,
you know.
you guys forgave him.
Of course, yes, of course we did. And then, well, we were without the job, so we thought, well, right now is the time to go to Glasgow. So we packed everything up, what we had, and traveled up to Glasgow. And we knew about Alan Park, who was an organist, and he said he wanted to join us. And then we advertised for a drummer, and we auditioned. It was amazing how many drummers we got through, really. Have you heard of Lulu? I don't know. She married one of the Bee Gees. And she's a Scottish great singer, and she's on tour at the moment. But anyway, we auditioned Lulu's drummer, and we were, oh, this is great, you know. But then eventually our Ray came to us, and we knew immediately that he was for us, and then that was the start, and we got together and we practiced day and night, much to the neighbors' disgust, for about 5 or 6 weeks until we got we got this first gig in the pub I was telling you about.
Lots of rehearsals, yeah.
Oh yeah, always. And we weren't writing our own stuff at that time, you know. We were doing covers, you know. We did Zeppelin covers, we did Jethro Tull, we did Family, Beatles, of course, Stones, you know, just to get into the club scene, you know.
Right, that's how most bands start out.
Yeah.
Covering other artists. Well,
yeah.
I saw on your Facebook, I did go through and look, the different transportation vehicles that you had over the years. What was your earliest transportation to and from show?
Yeah, the earliest was an Austin van, and that's what we traveled up to from London up to Glasgow with the gear that we had at that time. I followed on in my little Austin minivan, the grey one there, and this van, the Austin van, the bodywork was so rusty. The bodywork was just coming off the chassis, you know. It was really, really dangerous, you know. But well, that was our transport at that time.
Any interesting stories? Did you guys break down at all? Or
oh well, the breakdowns came later, because our first real transport in Beggars Opera was a Ford Transit. All the bands had Ford Transits then, but they were, well, not the most reliable. No, in fact, no, they were. It was the Leyland one that we bought. We'd had this van, the Ford Transit, and for the group we had a Rover car, you know. Very grand indeed, but I mean, the three of us squashed into the back. It wasn't too comfortable, but Ricky was always driving. He was driving, and he was all right. And Marshall was, because he had the longest legs, he was in the seat next to him, you know. And then we decided, well, we got this van and car, and there's another van because Ray had his own van. Ray was working in the shipyards in Yarrows in Glasgow, you know, for quite a long time, and gigging as well, you know. He would be home from a gig at 4 o'clock in the morning and had to get up and do the work in the shipyards at 8 o'clock, you know. Anyway, had this van, and he used to transport his drums with that. And then we decided, right, when he decided he wanted to stick with the band and always play, then we ordered this special British Leyland van, which had the gear was at the back, then there was a partition, and then there was place for the group in aircraft seats. Oh yeah. And then there was the driving compartment there. And unfortunately, on a tour of Scotland, it'd been raining, pouring with rain, and we stopped for diesel. But of course, somehow the water got into the tank and so when we filled up with water. It had come to, you know, and of course then that ruined the engine, and that was it. Yeah. From that day on, we were always having problems with this truck, you know. It was desperate.
Well, how many miles per gallon do you get with water?
I know, yeah. Wouldn't it be marvelous if you could solve all our problems? Yeah.
Right.
Run on water. Yeah.
Unending supply, never-ending supply. That would be something, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
but it wasn't a good van, but it was great. You know, I think you saw the photograph. It was great promotion for us, and yeah, it was great.
We'll talk about some memorable live shows early on.
Yes. Well, as I said, we started off in Burns House, which was a pub club, lots of pub bands at that time, groups, and that was always great. We played there every night and twice on a Saturday, and it was absolutely full all the time. The matinee on a Saturday, people were queuing around the block to come and see us, and just a small stage. Do you know Stone the Crows? You
Yes.
heard of a band called Stone the Crows? Maggie
Yes, I did.
Bell, great
Yes.
singer, and we took over the residency from them
Mhm.
in Burns House, and but then we thought, well, we should get on the road, and you know, we really not, I wouldn't say we'd done everything we could. In fact, I was quoted about that, and I got into trouble, you know, about that. But we needed to get to London. We needed to get, you know, to where the record companies were and everything. We always came back to Burns House. But we played a lot of the universities. We got on the university circuit. Our music seemed to appeal. It was classic rock. It was a lot of classical music from Franz von Suppé, and we used to. Our show was very vibrant, and I was jumping around like an idiot, but you know, like a mad conductor, conducting the group and everything. And then we, yes, that's right. We were invited to do a live television broadcast for a German television station called Radio Bremen, and their show was called Beat Club. Which, if you see that, you see how many great bands. You know, I mean, I don't know how they got hold of us at such an early time, but I was so thankful. You know, and we flew over to Bremen, and we got picked up by these taxis, all Mercedes-Benz taxis. Oh, we couldn't believe it. If you had a Mercedes-Benz in Glasgow, you were, well, but these were taxis. You know? And well, she picked us up. She was the moderator of this show. And we did 3 songs, and you could play live. You know, it was amazing. It was great. And that really started us in Germany then. And then the real big festival started. Not long after that, we played at the first British Rock Festival in Speyer, which is not too far away from here, actually. And it was a wonderful experience. We were on between Fleetwood Mac and Black Sabbath. So it was a, you know, a nerve-wracking sort of atmosphere. But we came on at a wonderful time. The sun was going down, spots were coming on, and there were 70,000 people there. You know, it was just wonderful. And we went down really great. We went
Was
down
that,
really
I was going to ask you, huge Fleetwood Mac, early Fleetwood Mac fan.
Yes.
Was that around what year was that?
This was 1970.
Okay. Who was in the band?
Sorry, I correct myself. 1971. Yeah.
Okay.
September of 1971.
I'm trying to think. Was Peter Green? He wasn't still with them.
No, he wasn't. No.
Okay, no, he wasn't.
It was before the couple from the States.
Right. It was well before that. I think it might have been Bob Welch. He was in the band at one time too. And another,
it was the original. I mean, Mick Fleetwood on drums, and
John McVie,
Christine Perfect, and yeah,
they went through several lineup changes. I was just trying to think.
Yeah, they did, and it wasn't easy for them. They were not. I don't know. They weren't really not too happy. I remember on the stage, and then we came on, and yeah, it was great. And then Black Sabbath came on after us. And it wasn't so easy. We'd had a few tiffs with the Black Sabbath on the way. There was always a great rivalry, although we were both Vertigo album bands, you know, Black Sabbath major, of course. And we used to meet up occasionally on the university circuit. But of course, in those days, the goal was to blow the other band off the stage.
Right.
You know? It was always very, very healthy competition, I must tell you, because they play very well. You did your best, of course. And I remember a couple of weeks, or maybe it was a month, I can't remember. We played with them in Strathclyde University in Glasgow, and we had actually done better, may I say. And so when we played together in Speyer, it was in the festival, it was a bit dodgy.
Yes, well, tell us what Ray Wilson would wear on stage.
Nearly nothing. He was renowned for drums, playing in his kilt. His kilt, and he had a hat, a sort of a floppy hat, bare-chested, kilt, and white trainers, and that was it. I'm not going to tell you about anything under the kilt because I know that it's a Scottish, everyone wants to know what's under the kilt there.
Right.
Yeah, that's what he used to wear.
Yeah.
He was great. He was really the wild man of our band. He was so great stage presence and really heavy and great.
Right. A whole lot of drummers throughout history have been, Keith Moon is probably the epitome of that.
When you think of it, I think you have to be mad. I mean, drums never really appealed to me but getting all those rhythms going and getting it all together and the cymbals.
Yes. Yeah. The band played the Cavern in Liverpool.
We did, yeah. I do remember it so well because, Beatles being my, I just love them dearly. And then when I found out that we were going to do the Cavern, it was just amazing. And we played in the original Cavern. The Cavern has changed an awful lot. It was demolished and then rebuilt. But we played in the original Cavern. And I remember going down those steps into that sort of really smoky, beery, sort of perfumey smell that these clubs had, sweat as well. And that hit you as you went down the steps. And then, of course, we were quite a big band and we had quite a lot of gear. And we played on the original stage. The original stage was there. And when the Beatles played there, they just were the four of them, with Vox AC30s, and that was about it. And of course, Ringo's drums. We had a Mellotron, we had Hammond, we had the drums, we had the guitar, and the stacks, the Marshall stacks that we had, the white Marshall stacks. So we were really tight up there on the stage. The dressing room was just behind there, and it was just great. It was we managed to play with all that gear on the stage. And after it, I was sweating. I was sweating a lot on stage. I was jumping around, and I was so pleased. That I'd sweated on the same stage as the Beatles. The same with their sweat. That was what I thought anyway. And afterwards, I was talking to the manager, and I said, great, just play on the same stage. He said, I'm sorry to tell you, Martin, but the original stage was sawn up and sold to, and I thought, what a shame. Still, of course, the Cavern itself was there, with the bricks and everything, the original one.
Yes. And you also played the Marquee in London, and that was the place to play back then. To get a residency at the Marquee,
that was something very special. The Marquee, apart from its history of in rock and blues and jazz and everything, was in Wardour Street, which was always the center of the film industry, music industry. And so if you got a residency there, or mostly the guys used to come down from the journalists and the film industry or recording industry, and they would go in and they'd probably go down to the Ship pub down the road and have a few beers, and then go down, because at that time, the beginning, the Marquee didn't have a license. It did have it later on when we were playing there as well. Yes, and we had a residency in the Marquee, and it was great. It was a superb club. Of course, that's gone as well.
Right.
It's now flats. I was there a couple of months ago, just having a wander around, and
And are these flats? Are they all what I would consider cookie cutter? Do they all look the same?
I haven't been in there, but I can't imagine making a flat out of the stage area of the Marquee. But it must be wonderful.
Yeah,
I think they're all very, very expensive flats.
Right. We have them cropping up here all the time, and they all look the same. That's why I call them cookie cutter, because they all look the same. And there's even one called the Standard. That's the name of it, the Standard. And I thought, wow, that kind of says it all. It's just standard. It's just standard. Yeah.
Kind of like if you walk into a Novotel room, it's like all the other Novotel rooms in the whole world. You could be in Hong Kong, you could be anywhere.
That's right. I
remember I did a tour with a French group called Ange,
Yes.
Have you
Oh,
heard?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Ange.
Amazing. It was 1977, and I played in the with Scorpions. You mentioned Scorpions there. I played, backup, or support as it's called, and they were also there. And they asked me to do their 1977 French tour. I
Yes.
thought, great, yeah.
Yes.
And we went from north, south, east, west, France, and we traveled in a Cadillac.
Oh,
And
wow.
I've got a photo, but and it used to be, apparently, so they said, President Ford's old Cadillac,
Is
and
that
they
right?
bought it. Yeah, a huge thing, and that's how they traveled. And then there was Edwin Shirley Trucking, who were a great trucking firm at that time, and all the gear was in there. I started off in the Cadillac, and then, well, nobody spoke to me. Well, they didn't want to speak English or whatever. They were nice guys, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd go with the roadies and
Uh-huh.
go with Edwin Shirley Trucking, which I did. I ended up doing that. But it was an amazing, amazing tour. I don't know how I got onto it. You mentioned something
No,
about,
that's fine. I was going to bring those up later, but now that you mention it,
yeah,
Ange, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of this album. I do have one of their. It's a 1974 album,
yeah.
but it translates to Beyond the Delirium. So
Okay, they're a
translate.
bit like Genesis in a way,
Yes,
and
yeah,
lots of
but it's
costume, and they're really so popular. I remember
yeah.
the first night of this 6-week tour, I think it was actually, was in Lyon, and there were 7,000 people there, and I thought, "What? I didn't." And then we played Palais de Sport twice in Paris. They were just amazing.
Yes, yes. I enjoy that. There's several good tracks on that album. I'm
Yeah,
always trying to discover from that time period, the
yeah,
late 60s, early 70s. Um, and I've reached out to, I want to talk to people from all over the world,
yeah.
all, countries. And a
Great.
lot of the times when I reach like French, especially French, well, my English, they'll write back, my English is not so good,
Yeah,
and all
I
that.
don't know. They don't like to speak English,
Yeah,
although I'm
yeah,
sure they can. But still, yeah. So, but actually, by the end of
yeah.
this tour,
Uh-huh.
my school French, was not too bad at all. I
Was
must
not
admit.
bad. Okay.
But I must tell you, in Palais de Sport, there was. I used to finish off. They sort of blended from my support into their my last number. They would be waiting behind on the stage, so that bang, as soon as I'd finished, then they would be there, lights
Yes.
and everything. And my last number was always Eleanor Rigby
Oh, okay.
from the Beatles. I loved it, and I used to do it. I used to do a sort of more of a upbeat kind of version of Eleanor Rigby on my Ovation guitar, which was a relatively new guitar at that time. An Ovation, I loved it dearly, and I used to try and get the audience to clap a lot, to get it. Because have you seen those lonely woman? Have you seen that long guitar was sort of there? Have you
Uh-huh.
seen that lonely woman? Then bashing on the guitar, down, down. My hand went through the guitar, the
Oh,
body of the guitar, really,
did it?
right into it. Oh my God. I was devastated.
Uh-huh.
And of course, I couldn't use it anymore, it was
Yeah.
just broken. But luckily, the Ovation dealer was in Paris and he lent me a guitar for the rest
Oh,
of the
good.
tour. But I was, I wept, afterwards because of
Oh,
this. I was just getting carried away,
right, right.
and then it was.
Martin, yeah, you were having a coming to God moment there, and then it just went through
Probably,
a
yeah, I don't
gospel,
know. He was
almost like a
giving me, I don't
gospel.
know,
Yeah.
power, and but unfortunately, my Ovation suffered.
Suffered through it. We'll go backtracking a little bit. Do you remember how the band came to be signed to Vertigo?
Yes, I do. We were playing in a pub. Well, it was a pub at a hotel called the Watermill Hotel in Paisley, which is not too far from Glasgow. We used to do a Sunday morning gig there, and we played probably 3 times on the Saturday. We played probably twice on Saturday night, and then played the Picasso Club in Glasgow, appearing at about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd be finished by 4:30 in the morning, and then we went to play this matinee in the Watermill Hotel, usually at about 11 o'clock in the morning. So you can imagine what we were. But we had a great crowd there, and it was always a great atmosphere. And a man called Bill Martin and Phil Coulter. They were very successful in the Eurovision Song Contest. I don't know if you, Cliff Richard had a hit, I think, written by them, and Dana started it off with all kinds of everything, I think. Anyway, but they very Scottish orientated and Irish orientated, and they'd heard about Beggars Opera, that we were basically Scottish, apart from the Sassenach Martin. And they came to see us and wanted to, they said, we'll sign you. And they signed us to their publishing company. And they got us this recording contract with Vertigo. And that's how it started, And we got our first.
There it is.
Yes, the first album.
That's me.
That's me.
That's you there. What a striking cover that is.
It is, isn't it? And the guy that photographed this and designed it, Marcus Keith. He actually got an award for it, for doing this cover,
And he also did the first 3 Black Sabbath albums.
Right. Amazing. He came up especially to see us in Glasgow. We took the photos for that at a reservoir, I remember, not too far. Yes. And that's how it started, with recording.
How about recollections from the recording sessions for that album?
Well, we came down to London and we booked into Delane Lee Studios, which was a famous. That's where Black Sabbath did a lot of. Deep Purple, maybe Black Sabbath as well, but Deep Purple did a lot of their work. And Deep Purple's engineer was Martin Birch. He is no longer with us, unfortunately. He was an incredible engineer. And we had him we were lucky enough to have him on Act 1, the first album. We didn't have much time. Budget was tight, of course, but the songs that we were going to record, we were well rehearsed on, because they were our live. It was our live performance. Those are the songs that we did in the Howth, the Burns Howth, because we finished off doing the covers and we started to do our own songs. And the Howth we always used to test them out on Burns Howth guests, and they always went down great. It was great. So we went into the studio, and it was all first day. Everything was mic'd up, the band, as it would be in a live situation on stage, and that was recorded. Okay. I stood there conducting the lads, doing it, without a microphone, just to keep everything together, And then the second day I did my vocals, and we did some fills and things like that. And the third day was mixed, and that was it.
I think a lot of times, the best albums, the products, are the live ones that are recorded pretty much live, not with all the extra takes and dubs and all that kind of stuff.
I think, what you mean. Yeah, Greg, it was spontaneous. I would say that. You know what I mean? It was our live gig.
Yes. Well, you guys, what you produced at that time, described as symphonic progressive rock, along the lines of what Keith Emerson and the Nice were doing around that time.
Of course, Alan loved Keith, and I was so pleased that they got to meet each other eventually. And but I'm also Exception. I think they're a Dutch band. They also do classical music,
Right.
But I must also just chuff here that there was not much vocals involved, and I was really pleased that I put my vocals to it.
Right.
It was always not easy because, in those days you have your long instrumentals. That was it, and so at the beginning I thought, well, what am I going to do during the instrumentals? Shall I go off stage and have a fag and have a smoke or whatever? And I decided, no, I'm not going to go off stage. I'm going to stay on and do my act, And so then that's how that started,
Yeah. Did that go down well with the audience, your act?
It did. It did. It really, I could really get them going. Because a lot of the classical things, had known, that was something that everybody knew and could get into, and But of course, after a gig, I think you can imagine how knackered I was, singing and jumping around like a mad conductor.
Right. I was really surprised, speaking of that, the Lone Ranger theme, the TV show.
Yeah.
When I found out that it was a classical piece,
Yes.
actually, and I thought, well, I thought this was just made for the TV show,
Right.
It
Yeah.
kind of blew my
So
mind.
many, well-known classical pieces were, of course, adapted and used.
Right.
Yeah, by us as well.
Right. Well, later that year, the single Sarabande
Right.
was released. Sarabande.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Okay, hold that up. Hold that up. There we go.
There it is. Yeah. This is, of course, the Vertigo edition, but also, European edition with picture on the front.
Yes.
Yes, sarabande.
And that one made some waves. That single did. It made some waves.
Yeah. It was a real chunky and I got to play my cowbell. Do you know that video, More Cowbell?
Yes, More Cowbell.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's how it was with us. I loved my cowbell, and I used to borrow it from Ray. I don't know if the others enjoyed it, just like in that movie clip, the More Cowbell. But it fitted in sarabande.
Right, it worked. Back in the day, when I was younger, I never learned to play an instrument or anything, but I could have played the cowbell. I know I could have done it. Yeah, you could post in the want ads, musician who plays cowbell looking for band. I could see what people would laugh.
In fact, I think I've got a credit in one of the albums. Yes, I have, and this is the second album.
Yes, that's the one I have. That's the one I have. Yeah.
Okay, and if you can see the spread in the
inside, yes.
The middle. Yeah. That's me. That's me there. There's Virginia Scott, who was Mellotron, and Ricky's girlfriend, and there's Ricky Gardiner, who played later with David Bowie.
Hold it up just a little bit. Hold it up. There we go. Now we can get the whole picture. Yeah. There you go. Okay, that's Ricky.
That's Ricky. And here, this is Ray. Sorry, this is Alan, organist, and Ray drums.
Ray's got
Gordon, the bass guitarist at the end.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, Ray's got a shirt on. That's nice.
Oh yeah. No, well, only on stage. He was prepared only on stage to show his bare chest. But here I've got a credit. Okay. Martin Griffiths, lead vocal and cowbell.
And it says cowbell. Oh, you got credit for it. Good.
I got a credit for it.
Yeah, that's funny. That skit on SNL is hilarious. Well, I was going to say before I go into that, rewind a little bit. Did you happen to see my interview with Billy Ritchie of Clouds?
I didn't see that. I saw the one with the Poets. Was it with the guy from
Poets? The Poets. Yeah. Are you familiar with Clouds?
I'm not so much.
They were a Scottish prog band.
Okay.
Probably around the same time as you guys.
Okay.
So I'm surprised that you didn't.
What was called? Excuse me. Were they always called Clouds?
Clouds.
Yeah. Clouds.
And Billy Ritchie was in the band, a keyboard player.
Okay.
And this was kind of maybe a little bit before you guys, because it kind of predates what Keith Emerson was doing. So anyway, it was April of last year. Yeah. Billy Ritchie, Ritchie. When you have time, you might go back and scroll through my channel and check that out. But he was also another.
So I'm sure he had some good tales about Glasgow and.
Oh, he had some tales to tell. Well, the second album, which you just held up, Waters of Change, that's the one I have on CD, and that was my first, encounter with your music. And I want to talk about the Mellotron, Virginia Scott.
Yes.
That's what drew me in first off, was the Mellotron. That's one of my favorite instruments. Yeah. And I guess I first heard it with Michael Pender of Rest in Peace, Moody Blues.
Yes.
That was probably my first time hearing that, but I just love the sound you get out of that.
Yeah.
Talk about wasn't that a really heavy instrument to move around?
Well, we bought our Mellotron from Moody Blues.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what you're listening to on Waters of Change is the Moody Blues Mellotron. What happened was, first of all, yeah, Marshall Erskine, our bass guitarist, wasn't happy and he left the band. So things were changing anyway. It was a bit of like a waters of change, yeah. And our second album was due, and so we got round to it that Ricky Gardiner wanted his girlfriend into the band. Very, very good musician, classically trained. And we thought, well, to add another dimension to what we were playing, the Mellotron would be perfect, you know, with the strings and everything. And of course, the old Mellotron, as you mentioned, God, this you needed a guy on each corner to lift it, just like the Hammond organ. It was amazing, but it was an incredible machine. I mean, have you heard? You know, I'm sure you Bungalow Bill on the White Album from the Beatles.
Yes.
Hey, Bungalow Bill, you know,
Yeah.
with Yoko's on it. Before that starts, there is a guitar player, like a flamingo piece, you know, acoustic guitar. That is from the Mellotron. You could press a note, a key, and that would come, you know.
Right.
Amazing.
Right.
So anyway, we needed to practice and get Virginia into the band, and we got a new bass player called Gordon Seller. And we rented a farmhouse near Aberdeen and the Highlands of Scotland. And, you know, strangely enough, you have life plays strange things. This farmhouse had a barn, and that's where we did all our rehearsing and everything. It used to belong to Edvard Grieg, his family, you know. He eventually went, of course, to Norway, but it was great. And just a couple of villages down the road, family Presley, Elvis Presley. You know?
Really?
They're just down the road, yeah. So we were getting vibes from rock and roll and classical. It was wonderful. And we rehearsed there and got the Mellotron into it and everything, and it worked very well. And then we went down to Command Studios in London, and that's where we recorded Waters of Change.
Yes. That's a really nice album. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just here, but the Mellotron was just. We eventually sold it to PFM, Premarita Fonaria Marconi,
the Italian
band, yeah, who were also associated with Keith Emerson, I think. And we sold it to them. And so sad, you know, I think it was a couple of years ago, someone informed me that there was in a ditch somewhere in the north of Italy was found this Mellotron.
Really?
They'd just thrown it out. Obviously, I don't know if it was probably not working anymore, but they threw it out. And they knew that it was ours because of the serial number, apparently. And I was so sad that was a sad ending to a wonderful instrument, you know, with so much history in its keyboard, you know, itself.
Right.
Sad.
I think it deserved a proper funeral.
You know? I think you're right, yeah, because it was just a wreck. People were wondering if they should rescue it, you know, but it was too far gone.
Gone. We're not going to try. It's too heavy. Right, leave it there. Well, I think I messaged you or emailed you my favorites from that album: Time Machine,
thank you,
Nimbus, and Silver Peacock. Those are my top picks. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Time Machine has grown into sort of a bit of an anthem for us here in Germany. It became very popular. It was never a single. It was always on the album. But I don't know, at the time people really went for it, you know, and I play it live with my guitar, and it was in the German radio. It always was in the hit parade. They have an annual hit parade, you know, of the best or most loved songs of all time. 1,200 of them is in the actual chart, and we were 226, I think, this time. You know, but when you know who we were with, it's amazing, and so every year it comes up, and I'm so pleased that it's still going.
Yes.
It was too long, though. You know, we should have done a shorter version as a single. But,
well, I think the name is appropriate because it's traveled through time machine. you know.
You're right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. We actually, I wrote the words and of course the vocal melody, but we did that in this barn in Aberdeenshire. You know, the rehearsing there. That was where it was rehearsed and where we composed it. You know?
Yeah.
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 So it is
Well,
a veritable time machine.
right. It is.
And Silver
Well,
Peacock. Well, that
yeah.
was I did that. I wrote the words and the vocal melody to that as well. But it starts off, I like, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, the Silver Peacock. And I remember I had to have one of these trumpet things, to
Yeah.
charge up.
Yeah.
Yeah, great fun. Great
Like
fun.
who used to do that back in the day, the 20s or 30s? There was a guy that was famous in America for doing that. He would
Yeah, these with the dressed
Rudy
up.
Valley, Rudy Valley, Rudy Valley.
All right.
Yeah, he used
Yeah,
to sing through that. Yeah,
wearing the
yeah,
sticky
the bow
bows
tie.
and the bow
Yes,
tie and the suit. Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, Virginia Scott's sister was or is quite the artist. She's still around.
Yes, I believe so. She did a lot of artwork for a
Right.
poster, for
She did at
example.
least one of the Vertigo posters. That's what I was going to bring
Yeah,
up.
indeed.
Did
Yes,
she
a very,
pursue?
very talented family, half Italian. I remember
Yeah.
when we were doing tours of Italy, which we did quite a few times. It was always great because she could translate for us. And yeah, I also lived in Italy for a while, 5 years, in Varese, which is in the northern parts of Italy.
I bet that was beautiful.
Oh, beautiful. In fact, quite near to a bootleg CD that came out. Yeah, from this
Uh-huh.
club in Varese. But of course, in those days, the sound. I mean, okay, if you're going to bootleg it, try and get a good sound. You know what I mean? Because it was desperate. Still, it was a good idea of what
At
we
the
were
time.
live at that time. Although
Yes,
the
yeah,
Beat Club recordings are a lot better.
a lot better
Yeah,
than that. Yeah.
great.
Well, why did Marshall leave the band?
Yeah, Marshall wanted, I don't know, I was very an unhappy time. I think, you see, bass and drums really work together. They
Yes.
really, the backbone of a group. And
Yeah.
I think Marshall wasn't really satisfied enough with the way Ray was. Ray was a showman and very heavy, and I think Marshall wanted to go out and do some other things, maybe a bit of jazz, and that's so he left, and then he joined a group called the Clowns. They were from Holland. Great showman. The main vocalist was, and it was a bit like a Leon Russell, that sort of
Yeah.
great sort of show band sort of idea. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And so that's how, and he left. Yes, and
Yeah.
we were
Well,
sad because Marshall was a school friend of mine, and he taught me some nice chords on my guitar, and we were great mates. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's what, like you said, that rhythm section, the bass and the drums, the backbone of the band. If you're not on the same page or you're not in sync, it's
That's
hard
right.
to. Yeah.
And I mean, with the excitement on stage, you speed up. I mean, Ray was so with it, and you tend to speed up a bit, and that of course was for a bass player trying to keep it nice and steady. That was just a
Didn't
disaster
work.
for him sometimes. But he went on to great things.
Yes. Well, 1972's Pathfinder.
Yeah.
First, who designed the cover? Yes. Hold this one up too. Who designed that cover?
Yes, got it there on the back. I always call him the Galloping Astronaut.
Yeah, that's right.
And Peter Goodfellow is the artist here.
Okay.
And it's so the collector's items are, there we are, including the poster. There's a poster inside with the first pressings. And if you can get hold of one of those, they are collector's items.
Collector's items. Well, what was the symbolism in the astronaut riding a horse? What was that?
I don't know. It was called Pathfinder, and so maybe this is this musician astronaut on his horse galloping through the lunar landscape, looking for things, new things, And it was also Pathfinder we were changing our music style somewhat. okay, classical right at the beginning with Act One, and then with the new members in Waters of Change, which was more a sort of a concept album, I think, and then coming to Pathfinder, then it was changing a bit, and it wasn't. I was not so happy, I must say, with the way things were changing musically.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But the album does include a cover of Jimmy Webb's classic MacArthur
Yes.
Park. You guys did a great job with it.
Thank you.
Whose idea was it to cover the song? Oh, okay. Well, kudos. Yeah.
Yeah, it was because I'd always loved great ballads, great songs, and great singers like Sinatra.
Yeah.
He was my dream, the way he could control his voice and his breathing and everything. And of course, MacArthur Park. When I heard it, we just loved it, and it was big in the States and everywhere. Richard Harris, I loved the way he sang it.
Yeah.
And I thought this would be ideal for a rock band, to do.
Right.
Of course, we've had disco versions of it and things like that, and a lot of versions. But the band, the group weren't, well, no, we don't want to do it. No. And I pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And eventually, probably I got on their nerves so much. They said, okay, come on, let's do it. And we did our version of MacArthur Park. And I loved singing it. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And that's also a lot of new listeners know about MacArthur Park. It was on the Pathfinder album, and that entered this German radio hit parade chart. I think at 900 and something or other, but still, anyway, it came in, and it's still known.
Well,
I spoke. I didn't speak to Jimmy Webb, but I sent him an email, never expecting him. Reply, but he did. He replied to me.
He did reply. Okay.
Yeah, and said, "Great, and enjoy it, and great that you're making music still." And he's making music with his sons apparently, and he's on tour as well, very, very active. And that was great, And he has a book that he wrote called "The Cake and the Rain." Someone left the cake out in the rain, and we're mentioned in that, and so really chuffed.
Yes. Well, I didn't think anybody could surpass the length of Richard Harris's version, but you guys did. You guys did.
Thank you.
It's like a minute.
He was something. He was actually. Richard Harris was in the same publishing company as Beggars Opera, and he got word to us saying how much he really loved this version of MacArthur Park, and we're, God, Richard Harris liking it, so that was the icing on the cake, out in the rain.
Right. Well, because I was only familiar with Richard Harris's, that version of it before I heard yours, but it's really appropriate. It really works well in a progressive band. That sound. Especially the instrumental parts. Really work.
It's a very dramatic song with very, very recognizable riffs, you could say, and that contrast of being, really rocky, and then going down into the middle section with "There will be another song for me, or I will sing it." It's very down and very breathy. I remember in the recording studios, in Command Studios, I had to go really right up to the microphone, and get it there. So it's full of drama. Really. Yeah.
Right. He's another one like Burt Bacharach, who their own material, when he's saying his own material, it doesn't really come across. He's a great writer,
right?
Maybe not the best singer, but it took other artists to sing his songs, to really bring it to life, like Glenn Campbell,
Indeed, his lifelong friend, yes, of course. Yes. I love Jimmy Webb. I play a little bit of piano, and I love singing "By the Time I Get to Phoenix." It's just so wonderful song.
He's got some great tracks, and he was very young when he started out writing too.
Really and had success very young as well.
Well, why did the band abandon the Mellotron on this release?
Well, we sold, as I told you, the original heavy
Oh,
Mellotron
you had already sold it, but okay. Okay.
to PFN, yeah. And then we got the smaller Mellotron, which was I remember it didn't have as many effects on it, like, this guitar before Bungalow Bill. It had
Yeah.
just strings and I think saxophones, things like that. But then, well, things were getting a bit tight, I don't know, and Virginia left the band, which was always also a very dramatic and painful process. Of course, Ricky was very, very disappointed. Of course, his girlfriend leaving the band. But things were getting rather difficult. We had a little bit of keyboard jealousy in the band, which happened there. And also, yeah. And so, yeah, that was it, unfortunately. And then we continued without a Mellotron, just the five of us, the Ricky on lead guitar, Gordon bass, myself singing, and Ray on drums, and yeah, and Alan, of course, on the organ, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so, yeah,
how long after the release of the album did you leave the band?
yeah, I was, I was actually sort of unhappy when we were doing this one, Pathfinder. And they gave me, I wrote the credits rather back down there. I don't know if they knew I was feeling unhappy and wanted to, come on, Martin, you can write this for us. And it was becoming more and more instrumental. And I'm a singer. I'm a singer, Greg. And it's my life and my blood is to sing. And I found myself, just the instrumentals were getting longer. And in fact, Classical Gas is a single that Beggars Opera did, and we wanted to do another long or instrumental. And oh dear. And but it all came to a head on a European tour. We were on stage, great, and I was singing really high, and bloop, bloop, what's that? And it was a hernia. I got
Oh,
a hernia on
oh,
stage,
oh.
and I thought, oh God, this is something wrong here. And so I went to a doctor, and he said, Mr. Griffiths, oh, Herr Griffiths, you have to be careful. It could strangulate. These hernias are not, and so we were in the middle of a tour of Europe, and I thought, God, how are we going to do this? So I did the tour and everything. I always said, please, we were popular, and it used to stretch to 3 or 4 encores. People were really up for it. I said, let's try and keep that, a little bit in control. And the band weren't happy about that, and I just thought, well, I've got to have an operation, and I was disappointed with the attitude of,
Yeah.
because for me, the band or the group at the time were a family. We were family. You
Right.
did not go and play with other bands,
Right.
Your
Yeah.
band was your family. Like
Right.
today, everybody plays with everybody else, and I always thought that for the fans, if you got new people coming in all the time, then you can't have that, excuse me, that contact.
Yes. Yes.
And yes, so my family it was breaking down.
Right.
And so I left in the May after that tour, gave everybody enough notice. After that tour, I left, and it was May 1972.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Post Toasties. No. Post Beggars Opera. Ricky would go on to play on David Bowie's Low album,
That's right.
and with Iggy Pop, and even
Yes,
co-wrote The Passenger, one of my
that's
favorite songs.
that's right.
Yeah.
Ricky always lifted our music in the school band and also in Beggars Opera. He incredible. He was always working out new sounds. He had his own special amplifier, that he worked out what he wanted to do, and he was always layering his guitar. And yeah, well, Tony Visconti, who was the producer of David Bowie, was Italian descent,
Yeah.
and Virginia Italian, and
Uh-huh.
so I think that's how they got the connection there, and so it went on from there. Yeah, and he was. I remember meeting him. I think he just toured America with David Bowie, and he was. It's not easy. these tours were, you know, pretty heavy. And he told me about that it was in Berlin where they where they recorded it.
Recorded that, right?
Yeah, in Berlin, and
Yeah.
yeah, amazing. Yeah, and with Iggy Pop, yeah, he was. And I never thought, because Iggy Pop's a bit sort of punky, isn't he? You know?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I really.
Yeah.
All I remember is his amazing muscles. Oh,
He was he was a protege, Bowie. You know, Bowie kind of helped groom him, you know.
yeah.
So they, you know, for his stardom. Well, you moved to Germany what in 74?
Yes, it was that, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I left the band, I sold tea bags, which I thought was quite good for an Englishman to sell tea bags. So Lions
Right.
tea bags were I had a van and filled it with tea bags and used to go around the shops, and then I got a job in Manchester, and I couldn't keep away. I wanted to be back on the stage. You know, I thought I'd left the band, but also because of the business, I didn't want any more of it, but I couldn't get away from the stage. And so in Manchester at that time, there was a great circuit for working men's clubs. And I got hold of a tux, I think evening suit and my bow tie, and went along for an audition and to do Sinatra stuff and all the swing stuff and things, and started working in the clubs of Manchester. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, and then I was always in contact with people in Germany, friends there, club managers, and they asked me if I'd like to go out to Bavaria for my summer holidays, which I did. And
Yeah.
then I decided to go out to Germany and try it again. So I sold everything and arrived in Germany with 2 guitars and a suitcase. And that was when I moved to Bavaria in the Alps there. It was great. There was a little cafe in the mountains that the guy that I knew from a club in Lindau, which is on Lake Constance, he had rented this cafe in the mountains, and
yes.
I used to sing there with my guitar, you know, and entertain. The hat would go round and full of beer, and it was just wonderful. Yeah. And I remember clearly that, and it really astounded me, and sort of about how popular Beggars Opera were. I remember there were a lot of young people who used to come up and listen to us. And I sat down with a couple, and we were talking about, you know, music and things. And he said to me, the young man said to me, "Hey, you know, you sound just like Martin Griffiths of Beggars Opera." I said, "Well, actually, I am Martin from Beggars Opera." But out of the blue, I thought, God, we must be really popular here, you know. And then that's why. And then I got some friends in Mannheim. And that's when I started backing up or supporting bands on the road who were going through Germany.
Right. I want to ask you about that, but before that, what do you credit your popularity or the popularity of Beggars Opera in Germany? What do you credit?
I'd like to think that it's because of the show that we used to. You know, when the Beatles were playing in the Star Club in Hamburg in those days, those early days, the Germans would shout, "Mach Schau, mach Schau," you know, put on a show. And they did. And they really, really walloped it. And for me, I think you know, getting everyone up and moving around, and also, of course, the classical. Okay, they were basically Franz von Suppe, which is Austrian. But they loved it, you know. And then, as I was saying to you at the beginning, Time Machine really took off. And this appearance on Beat Club, which was a nationwide television thing, and also being so successful at the first British Rock Festival,
right.
That really helped an awful lot. And we toured a lot in Germany. They loved Scottish bands or British bands, you know, and yeah, I think that's the reason why.
Yeah, I want to hear about your work with Brian Auger. That's an interview I would really like to get. I know he lives, I think, in California these days, and I've reached out to him, but haven't heard back yet.
He is in Facebook.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, I did reach out to him there. And I have one contact, another interview I did that used to work with him, and he said he would also reach out to him. That would be a nice. He said, yeah, he likes to do these kind of things, so that would really be nice. But anyway, talk about your work with Brian.
Yeah, as I said, I was easy to have, I think, because I was just my guitar. and my voice. And so various agencies, and also because of Beggars Opera, and booked me to backup bands. I was backing up Osibisa,
Yes.
Brian
Yeah.
Auger, Scorpions, yeah, all these, the bands that were on the road at that time.
Yeah.
With Brian Auger, I can remember it clearly. Well, just one of the gigs, couldn't believe it. We were playing in Saarbrücken, which is not too far, and there were hardly anyone there. Sometimes it depended on the time of the week that you was up for, and if there'd been enough promotion and what have you. But it was always great to do these gigs. What was that band? Radar Love. I don't know who's that.
Oh, a Golden Earring.
Golden Earring. That's right.
Yeah.
Played with them.
Yes.
And oh yes, and back to that great American, was it Confederate band? They had always the flag.
Are you talking about Leonard
Skinner?
Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, so I had some great times. I really had some great times supporting these bands.
Yeah, yeah. They talk about, I saw a biography on Leonard Skinner, and they were talking about the old gray whistle test. Remember that?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And they played on there, and how different it was, but they went down really well.
Yeah.
But playing like a Southern rock band like that, to play on.
They were really
yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. So and I was asked by some bands to join them, but as I was saying to you before, the group was the family, and you didn't do, and it was so difficult for me. But when I was working, I remember in the Alps, in this Cafe Horn, I got a call from a friend of mine from German radio, Hans-Jürgen Diemenstein. He said, there's a group called Can.
Yes, that was what I was coming to.
Yeah, who are looking for a singer,
Right.
And so, well, how do you fancy it? I said, I don't know them. I didn't know them at that time.
Yeah.
But they were from Cologne.
Yeah.
They had a theatre there that they rehearsed in. And he said, look, you can stay in their flat, I think Schmidt is the organist there, and stay there, and they'll pay for your train. And I said, why not? Let's go up and have a look. And so I went up, and God, it was amazing. These guys are improvisation pure.
Right. Yes.
All incredible musicians, but for a singer, not easy at all, Yes. And I remember I didn't know what to do. They were never invited me up on the stage. I was sitting in this theatre, and they're not practicing, they're getting into their songs. And I said, what am I going to do here? Nobody's asking me to come up and sing a song, So eventually I just plucked up courage. I thought, right. So I walked to the stage, got on the stage, saw there was a microphone, and then I just started singing, somewhere over the rainbow there lies love. And they thought it was great, And I was not making fun, but I thought, what can I sing? What can I do? And I think that song, Judy Garland, was in me somewhere. I had to get it out, and so I thought this is the right time to get it out, And they asked me if I would like to join the band, but I knew it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
They were really, really instrumentalists. And I'd known in Beggars Opera, they were also becoming very, very much more instrumental. And I'm a singer, and it wouldn't have worked. I know they went on to be very, very successful, especially in the UK. That would have been nice. But
But in hindsight, yeah. But interesting about that. The somewhere over the rainbow got you in cahoots with them.
Yeah, they loved it. Yeah, and I love it too. It's a wonderful, wonderful melody, and somehow I don't know, it fitted to what they were playing. Their improvisation, what they were doing at that time.
Yeah. Well, your voice, you just sang for us there. It's in fine form. Do you do anything for your voice? Drink honey, or do you do anything?
I don't. No. I've always been asked, because my voice is pretty strong, thank goodness, still, and how I never had any lessons or anything like that. But I remember clearly when we were practicing in Glasgow to get into this first gig, we ordered 200-watt Marshall stacks and PA in white. They were the first white Marshalls in Scotland, 200-watt. And somehow my PA wasn't there, didn't come. The lads had their gear, but I didn't. So I had to practice against 200-watt guitar, 200-watt bass, and 200-watt organ and the drums. And so somehow, the vocal cords, they were along with it. I had to sing over this incredible amplification. And so therefore, I think maybe it's kept. But I have to work at it well now. If I don't practice, I sing at least about an hour every day, and keep it nice and going. That's it.
Yes. Well, you also released a trio of singles in the late 70s. Israelites did quite well on the German disco charts. Yes, there it is.
Hey, and that's that Ovation that I think I got it repaired, and I think that's the one that I put my hand through.
Okay.
And I've got a new hairstyle.
Yes.
I've got a perm.
Yes.
Didn't do much for my hair, I tell you. But yes, this was the disco time. Yeah. If you didn't play disco, you didn't get a job in those days. It was all after Saturday Night Fever, and discos were sprouting up everywhere. I'm sure it's the same in the States,
Yes.
And I got a recording contract with Ralph Siegel, who was also very successful in the Eurovision Song Contest, and started these disco singles. And I got a lot of jobs in discotheques. While I played live, I had my own PA and everything to promote the singles. The second single I did was Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, disco version. Poor old Otis Redding, I'm sure he turned in his grave.
Turning in his grave.
But it was successful. And the Israelites that you mentioned became number 3 in the German disco hit parade. So I was very proud of that.
Were you surprised it did that well?
I wanted number 1.
You're disappointed.
No, I wasn't disappointed. I was very pleased, because only if you had a record in the charts, you could get gigs. Really.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, get us up to date. What have you been doing since? And I want to hear, and I know everyone wants to hear about the Castle Guide. Being a castle.
Yeah. Well, where I live here, Heidelberg, it's a beautiful, beautiful city, and it has a castle up on the mountain. It's a ruin, but it's a beautiful ruin. And I always wanted to know about the history of why is it a ruin, and so I applied as a course that we're looking for guides, and I never thought I'd become a guide, but I passed the course and started guiding there, and also in Schwetzingen, which is the hunting lodge nearby, and Mannheim, which is also, it's a Baroque palace as well. And I love it. And I got to know why it is a ruin, because of the wars that have always been in this region over the centuries. But what happened there was in the 17th century, the French mined it and blew it up because of a family connection there. And I was so impressed with it. I wrote a musical about it, which was performed using Time Machine in it and Beggars Opera songs. And this was performed in the Stadthalle, the city hall, at the celebrations of the 400th wedding anniversary of Elizabeth Stuart and Frederick, the Prince and Princess there, which is great. And I've been doing it now for 15 years. And it inspires me all the time when I go around the garden there in Schwetzingen. I have a lot of American guests coming over and from various tour agencies, and I love showing them around. It's great, and it keeps me going. And also with the music, I had these songs that I'd written while in Beggars Opera in the bottom drawer, never used them, and then a friend of mine heard some tapes that I'd made back in the early 70s and said, come on, why don't you do something with them, And so with a great friend, Maxi Sator, and the band, Alias I, my son's band, we have got them up to date. So we're still with the flavors of 70s, of course. And that is this new album that I was telling you about at the beginning,
Yes.
called The Beggar.
Yes.
The Beggar from Beggars Opera. And it's just about finishing off now. Need some guitar work on it, and then the mastering. And I hope to have it released in the spring of 2025.
Okay. All right, that's something to look forward to. Well,
yeah. I will send you a copy.
Oh, okay, great, great. Hey, now you've hit on the real reason that I do these. See, so you guys will send me,
Good.
music. Yes,
right.
You'll send
will
me.
do. Good. You send me your address, and
that's
it'll be one of the first out.
That's my ulterior motive. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see behind you. Wow.
Yeah, right.
You have got a collection there.
I've got enough. Well, a couple of things. One thing I want to say about you've seen in your travels a lot of beautiful country. And you talk about the Alps, and in Germany, the castles. That's one thing we miss. We don't have here. I mean, we're such a young country.
Yeah.
I mean, 248, almost 250 years old. But in Europe, I mean, some of the countries there are just ancient.
Yes.
And so you have those kind of things that we really miss.
Yeah.
We don't have here.
Yeah. I mean, as I was saying,
yeah.
There's been a castle here in Heidelberg since the 14th century.
Right. Right. That kind of history.
Yeah. And I'm always so it's happy to see the reaction of my American guests when they come and to learn about the history. A lot of them actually come originally from, way back when, of course, from this area. This region is called Palatine, or Pfalz in German. I believe there is a city or a town in the United States called Palatine, which must come from, people coming from here, seeking refuge in the United States, and coming to look for their ancestors. And it's such a pleasure for me to show them.
Oh, yes, it must be. Well, couple more questions real quick. How is your son's Philip doing with genetic material? How is his band?
For genetic material, that's the other group that he has. He has Alias I, and then for genetic material. Have you heard any of their material?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, they are totally different. They are very, very progressive rock and very sort of atmospheric. And there is an album out at the moment where he's the main singer, and I do a few tracks sometimes, and he harmonizes with me when I do a track. And this new album, I'm singing on it, and the title I'm singing is called The Old Buffoon. Well, that's me. That puts me in my place there. But it's I love the song. It's sort of quite musical, sort of, and lots of harmonies there. And I think it's very, very catchy. And it's quite short, relatively short compared to the others. They're very, very long titles that they do.
Passages,
And Philip loves doing that. He can do harmony so well, automatically. He doesn't need. He just can harmonize. And we've loved singing since he was a baby.
I was going to say, nice that you passed that gene on to him, right?
Well, a lot of people they can't decipher who's singing. Do you know what I mean? Which is a great compliment to me, being nearly 75, and that the voice is still young. But I'm so pleased that. But it's not his business, thank goodness. Because as you know, I'm sure the music business is not the easiest of businesses. He is a doctor of philosophy at Mannheim University.
Okay.
And and my other son, Stephen, we're very proud of him as well. And he's in business, really, working for a pharmaceutical company. And he lives in Freiburg, which is my son, Philip, just lives just across the way there, actually.
Oh, okay.
We can nearly wave to each other. And Stephen lives not too far away, so it's good families.
Okay.
I've only got a sister in near London now.
Near London. So you get to see your sons quite a bit.
Yes, well, you know what, fam. We're so near that sometimes so far. Do you know?
Right.
Philip was with us last night. We were watching the soccer, Germany against Scotland. I don't know if you heard about it. A very dramatic match. Scotland, they didn't do too well, but I won't speak about that.
Do you want to talk about? I just watched recently a documentary on. It's called 99.
Okay.
about Manchester United
All right.
when they won the World Cup
Yeah.
back in I think 1999. That's why it's called
Okay.
99. And just the story leading up to that is very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, all the players and
Yeah.
Beckham was on the team
Of
at
course,
that
yeah,
time.
that's right.
Yeah,
Well, he's looking for his knighthood. He's looking for Sir.
and the coach was Scottish. I do remember that. Their
Yes,
coach
that's
was Scottish.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
He's retired
yeah,
now. I can't remember.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
that's right.
Yeah,
A lot of Scots are everywhere.
they're everywhere. They have
I'm Scottish as well.
yeah,
Although my
they
name
have
is Griffiths, that's a Welsh name, so you know.
Oh, it is. It really. You're right. You know,
Yeah,
Jones and Griffiths
that's right.
There's a whole lot of Welsh with
Yeah,
that last name. Yeah, it comes from. Well, one last question.
yeah.
Living there in Germany, can you get by without speaking German
I speak
for the most
German.
part? You do speak German?
I speak German. Yeah,
Okay,
I hope.
but can you get by? Do enough people speak English that you
I
don't
see what you
really?
mean.
Yeah,
Yeah. Of
yeah.
course, when I first came to Germany, I did not speak a word. I had a book which I tried to do something with. I did French at school and everything was forgotten, although with the Orange tour, I picked it up again. And of course, everyone wants to speak English to you, to try out
Right.
their English school English and so on. But I said, look, I want to live here. I want to stay here. I want to live in your country. Please, can you start speaking German to me? I need to learn it, And then it was better, It's a long process, a lot of television and misunderstandings in some cases, but I'm now happy to say and very proud to say that I can speak German.
That you speak German, but
Yeah.
but could you get by, let's say, where you live if you didn't speak
Of
German?
course,
Could you?
everybody
Okay.
speaks.
I thought
I'm
English was
sure
like
all the young people speak English, and
it's the
okay, yeah,
universal language.
universal language, as it is all over the world.
Well, that's good. That's good that you weren't that you wanted to learn it. That's good. Good
I
for you.
did, I did
Yeah.
want to, because when you know another language, you can know a bit more about the culture and the way people are. I think it's
Right.
important.
That's right. That's
Especially
right.
when you live in the country.
That's right. And you want to be one of them. You want to be one of the people.
Yeah, you want to be accepted. You want to be accepted, and just to get to know more, really. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you go, and I've really enjoyed it, Martin. Thank you so much.
Lovely to speak to you.
Yes, I've really enjoyed it, and I will send you once I get this edited. Shouldn't be much. Send you a copy so you can post it. You want to real quick plug your website and your
oh yes,
your Facebook.
I would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
I've got my own Facebook page. I've also got that's Martin Griffiths in Facebook, and I've also got a Facebook page called Beggars Opera, 1969 to 1972, which is when I was with the band. And I'm working on a website at the moment, which I will then obviously put up on my Facebook page. But it would be lovely to hear from you. Yeah.
Yes, and everybody keep up to date on the progress of his new album too by checking that out too.
Yeah.
Yes, I know fans will look forward to that.
Okay.
All right, Martin. Well, you have a good rest.
Speak well to you out there in television land or screen land.
Exactly.
And great, lovely to speak to you. Thank you very much for your interest. And yeah, great.
All right. You have a good rest of the weekend, okay, Martin?
And you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.